Those of you that have been following the channel for any length of time will know that basically I have three styles for my videos. I have the long, standalone, single story, I have the series, and then of course I have the anthology, where I try and group together 3 or 4 stories that have a similar theme in one video. Well, those anthologies can be a bit tricky at times, and tonight is one of those occasions, so basically I've just chosen 2 stories that I really like and wanted to read for you on a Friday night. Nothing wrong with that, eh? Well, there you go. So my dear friends, it is Friday, and it's time for you once again to sit back and relax with your favourite drink and listen. Mortality is a weird thing. It hits you like a bag of bricks once you make it to your late 20s or early 30s. It's about the time when your family starts getting diagnosed with all kinds of disease. Heart attacks, strokes, cancer. Well, for me, facing mortality meant something as innocuous as finding an odd lump on my arm while showering. It might not sound like a big deal, but it's important to note that my younger brother died from osteosarcoma, fairly aggressive bone cancer, and for him it was nothing more than a small, tender, unmoving lump he found on his leg. Even then, it was too late. He died a year later at the age of 7, which meant I was absolutely horrified to discover a similar lump on myself. Over the course of a few days, as I awaited my doctor's appointment, the lump grew ever so slightly. It had a strange shape, like a column of bone that hurt to touch. During the examination, the doctor looked at me with concern in his eyes. It pretty much confirmed what I'd already suspected, that the growth was bone, and it would probably turn out to be cancer. He didn't hesitate in referring me to a radiologist, and told me to return once the imaging had been done. A few days later, I returned, and as I sat in the office, on the brink of tears, 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. What to tell my sister? How to spend the remaining time left on Earth? Would it hurt as much as it did with my brother? At the very least, they'd certainly have to amputate my arm, which would severely compromise my gaming abilities. Oh, can you even drive with one arm? Well, then the doctor called me in. He didn't seem concerned, rather baffled, as if he hadn't the faintest clue what was wrong with me. After some consideration, he finally started speaking, unleashing a jumbled mess of medical terms and incomprehensible sentences. He took a deep breath before finally stammering out, It's not cancer." Despite the presumably good news, he didn't seem relieved. There was something he was holding back. "Then, what's wrong?" I asked. It's a tooth." He couldn't explain it any further, so he just showed me the x-ray. Even with my limited anatomical knowledge, I could see it clear as day. The tooth was growing straight out of my ulna, its roots firmly cemented in the bone, while the crown pushed on the surrounding tissue. On the one hand, it wasn't cancer. On the other, I had an impossible, bizarre growth extruding from the wrong part of my own skeleton. The doctor sat down with me and explained the concept of teratomas, a type of benign tumor that frequently grows hair, skin, and, well, partially developed organs. Despite its unusual presentation, we settled on that idea and scheduled me for surgery. It was a quick and simple procedure. A couple of days later, they discharged me and told me to rest a bit before returning to work. I was content, though admittedly a little bit disturbed by the whole ordeal. Life went on, and my arm healed up nicely, the scar almost completely covered up by the inappropriate amount of hair I'd started growing during my teenage years. A couple of weeks passed, and the surgery was all but a distant memory. And then, after a morning of increasing back pain, I found blood in my urine. Doctors will typically tell you not to get all riled up just because you found blood in your piss, because, well, it could be caused by pretty much anything, might not be blood at all. However, I did worry, and with a sense of panic, I rushed to the emergency clinic, where they quickly tested my urine to confirm the presence of hemoglobin. That, alongside my back pain, made them feel confident I was suffering from nothing more than an innocent little kidney stone. One of the interns performed an ultrasound scan, just to rule out cysts and whatnot, but her casual demeanor quickly turned to an expression of fear as she put the sensor against my skin. She excused herself and left the room, only to return after 10 minutes, dragging with her an older, presumably more experienced doctor. He seemed annoyed to have been called in for something so simple as an ultrasound. He grabbed the device without introducing himself and tried looking for a kidney. Just as with the intern, his annoyed confidence quickly turned to one of worry, and he too left without explaining what the hell was going on. By then, my discomfort had turned to excruciating agony. It already put me on an overabundance of painkillers, but it barely put a dent in the suffering I'd had to endure. I stood up to grab a hold of the doctor, ready to demand answers, but once I got to my feet, my vision started fading, and I collapsed to the ground. From there, my memory was hazy. A combination of pain and drugs put me in a trance-like state. I vaguely remember being taken for some sort of scan, and a tube being shoved down my throat. And then, finally, everything turned black. It would take me 2 days to awaken once more, at which point I was greeted by a team of specialists, all looking way out of their depth. They explained as best they could that I'd fallen into a coma following severe internal bleeding, and that I was an inch away from death when I was brought into the operating theatre. I had almost died, and if not for an insane stroke of luck, I wouldn't even have realized. Despite the success of the surgery, they still seemed nervous. I could tell there was more to this story. After a lot of talking around the point, and even more bizarre medical terms I couldn't possibly comprehend, I got mad. Just tell me what the fuck is happening to me. The oldest of the bunch finally stepped up and started explaining himself. Mr. Woodcombe, to be brutally honest, we haven't the faintest clue what kind of affliction you've come down with. It's, quite frankly, beyond anything we've dealt with in the past. What does that mean? Am I going to die? I asked. He took a deep breath. We can't know how the disease will progress. But what is happening to me? I yelled as I tried to sit up, still too groggy from the drugs, unable to feel the presence of my own body. He explained what had happened to me, that my stomach had started migrating towards my left flank, where it had enveloped itself around my kidney, slowly but certainly absorbing and digesting it. The process obviously severed its blood supply, which caused the bleed that almost killed me. They'd fixed the tooth, and they'd stopped the bleeding, but a part of me knew it wasn't over. I'm still not fixed, am I? I asked. He shook his head. I'm so sorry, Mr. Woodcombe, but this disease, we don't know how to stop it. At this point, we're just treating the symptoms. By then I'd woken up enough to coordinate my movements, but I still couldn't feel my right arm. I turned my head to check on it, and saw that the vast majority of my lower and half my upper arm had turned almost completely white. I tried to lift it, but my muscles simply wouldn't budge. The skin looked so smooth, like perfect silk covering an almost shapeless blob. I'd always been skinny, albeit a toned person, so my veins were fairly prominent, except that now they'd all seemingly vanished from my forearm, leaving nothing but a stump of a vessel I could see actively retract away under my skin. It happened just before you woke up. There was no time we could... What the fuck is happening to me? I asked once more. "We don't know," he said. I looked at him in despair. These were the people that were supposed to help me. Even the professionals were baffled, and I was screwed. "Mr. Woodcombe, your arm has absolutely no blood supply. I'm sorry, but we need to amputate it as quickly as possible. You shouldn't even be awake right now." They made me sign a consent form before proceeding. Just the act of writing my own name with my one remaining functioning arm was an excruciating ordeal. Another few hours went by, and my right arm was a part of the past. Once I woke up from my third surgery, the doctors informed me that I was to be transferred to a more specialized health facility. They didn't even have the courtesy to call it a hospital. They airlifted me, wrapped in a containment box of sorts, to prevent the spread of a disease that could potentially be contagious. While flying, I was strapped down with no view of my surroundings. Wherever they were taking me, they wouldn't tell, and based on the few glimpses I got of the world beneath us, I wouldn't have known anyway. On the ground, I was met by a team of doctors dressed in hazmat suits. The health facility looked more like a warehouse than anything else, and didn't ease the growing fear within me. They rolled me through an airlock, ensuring nothing infectious could get in or out. Inside of the facility was a massive, isolated room with hundreds of patients lined up next to each other. No rooms for privacy, no drapes to keep them apart, which meant they all probably suffered from the same condition as myself. One of the patients stared at me. He panted slow, shallow breaths as his chest had transformed into a thick wall of bone, each rib fused together, making breathing an almost impossible task. Another, younger woman, had skin that seemed to be shrunken a few sizes too small, stretching to the point where it had become a pathetic cover of epithelium, allowing her muscles to be clearly visible. But the worst was the patient in the bed next to mine. All his limbs had been amputated, and the entirety of his skin was covered in thick, bright red arteries, some of them actively bleeding, while others had been burned in a futile attempt at cauterizing them. He groaned in agony, almost inaudible, strained sounds coming from his toothless, tongueless mouth. His eyes and nose were missing, replaced by seemingly healthy skin, simply grown over most of his orifices, including his ears and scalp. He was trapped in pain, unable to hear, see, or communicate with the world around him. But if he could, I'm certain he would have begged for death. After a couple of hours of staring at the horrifically mangled people around me, a doctor approached me. He was a tired-looking old man that had been broken by the afflictions of others. "I'm Dr. Foreman. Your name is Eric Woodcombe, correct?" I nodded. "I'm going to administer a drug. It'll slow down the progression of the disease." "Will it help? Can you please help me?" I asked frantically. He looked around, seeming to check if anyone could hear us speak. "It'll slow it down, but it won't cure it. We're not even sure what causes this disease, but antimitotic drugs seem to put it into a sort of stasis." "What is it, exactly?" I asked with a trembling voice. "It is an infection, Mr. Woodcombe, though it's not bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, or prion in origin. All I know is that it affects anyone that touches it, and that we're not going to be able to contain it for long." I then asked a question I already knew the answer to. "Am I going to die?" He just nodded, his emotionless face never changing. "How long do I said, before he interrupted me. "A week, maybe 2. Once the disease has converted all of your organs to an incomprehensible mess, and when even the most experienced forensics teams will be unable to recognize your corpse as that of a human being, that's when you will die." His bedside manner left a lot to be desired, But it was obvious that he'd gone through that speech 100 times before. He was detached, desensitized from the nightmare that surrounded him. As he turned around to leave, I noticed his arm had bone spicules, skeletal spikes protruding through his skin. "Doctor, your arm." He looked down at it and sighed. "I told you it was infectious. Everyone in this room, staff, patients, even the dogs that lurked around the site. The guys outside wearing hazmat suits have been hunting them down, but it's too late for that. Not that their fancy protection gear will help them, but I'm not going to break that news to them." I was speechless, and he could tell his words hadn't comforted me in the least. He just didn't care. "I'm sorry, but you should make peace with your family, friends, whatever you have in this world, because if we don't find a viable cure within the next week, they're torching this place." As the days progressed, they kept bringing in more and more patients. Some looked mostly normal, healthy even, while others were unrecognizable. Their faces replaced by a solid mesh of flesh, and their organs relocated to the surface of their skin. One of them had his heart placed outside his chest, beating as if nothing had happened, with thousands of additional arteries extending from it, like a red spiderweb covering most of his torso. The pain must have been too much, because as he walked past my bed, he grabbed his own heart, attempting to rip it off. A few of the arteries tore open, spurting crimson blood all around him, but the heart itself wouldn't budge. He groaned, and with one final pull, he fell dead to the ground, clutching a clump of meat he'd managed to pull from the now dead heart. As they lifted his lifeless body onto a stretcher, I got a better view of his face. I realized that I recognized him. He'd been the doctor that examined my lump, the tooth stuck in my bone. He had died because of me. On the 5th day of my containment, I started to lose vision in one of my eyes. I could feel it pulsating, growing within its socket, but I didn't dare look at myself in the mirror. A few hours passed, and suddenly I just felt a pop, followed by the sensation of a viscous liquid trickling down my face. My eye had exploded, and I still didn't have the guts to put myself in front of a mirror, or to call out for help. In a couple of days, they'll burn this place to the ground in an attempt at preventing the spread of whatever disease has infected us. The doctors aren't hopeful about a cure, but fire seems the safest option, just turning us all to ash. A price worth paying to save the world, I suppose. At least they're giving us a chance to call our loved ones. But I don't have much family left, so to speak. The thing bothering me the most, that I'll most likely die without knowing what had killed me, where the disease had come from, and how I could have avoided it altogether. Hindsight is 20/20 and all that. Not that it matters to me. I'm already dead. But whatever finally got me, it's still out there. My name is, well, let's not get bogged down by details. By the time you read this, I'll be locked away. I've killed my cheating bitch of a wife. Now, I know what you're thinking. By the sound of my last statement, I must be some kind of deranged lunatic. Mommy was a whore and Daddy was a raging drunk who staggered home every night and beat us senseless. A dysfunctional family is surely the breeding ground of psychopathy. Well, sorry to disappoint, but couldn't be further from the truth. My folks weren't perfect, but I had a very happy childhood. My mother was a secretary and my father worked himself to death in a cubicle for 30-something years. I went to bed at 9 p.m. every night, nice and full of Mum's delicious meal, nurturing my body to help me grow into the man I am today. I was never really afraid of the dark like the other kids. There were no monsters in my closet or under my bed. I guess that's because there was already a monster in my bed, fast asleep in his cowboy pajamas and clutching his teddy bear. I hope you're paying attention. You might learn something. The times make the man, not the other way around. By the time I was 17, I'd already killed 7 men. I was drafted into the service that year and spent the next few years of my life jumping in and out of foxholes. I saw 2 of my best friends die right beside me. There was an artillery barrage. We were all laying down with our heads in the dirt. Next thing I knew, everything was on fire and my friends were gone. Just 1 month shy of when we were supposed to get home. My father always used to tell me, "You'll see, son. A little bit of hard work and a lot of sacrifices pay off in the end." Well, I sacrificed a lot for my country. Went partially deaf in one ear, lost my spleen, shattered my pancreas. What did it get me? Night terrors, flashbacks, paranoia, and a job in my podunk little town at a gas station. Who would have thought shooting an insurgent half a mile away from me with a rifle during high wind wasn't applicable work skills? Well, go figure. Wasn't all bad. At least I had my high school sweetheart. We married as soon as I got back home. Never got a chance to do it before. It was great, for about 6 months. It's hard to say where exactly it all went wrong. 1 minute we were happily married and couldn't get enough of each other, and the next we were vying for the front door. Our marriage counselors suggested taking a vacation together to try and restore the fire in our relationship, but I found myself praying for the plane just to crash and end it all. Sad, isn't it? I would have rather just been killed than go home. The signs of an affair had been slowly starting to come together, but I chose to ignore them because I didn't want to believe she would ever cheat on me. One day, I came home early from work. She went out to the store and left her cell phone at home by mistake. It was very unlike her to do that. Usually I'd fight the urge to give in and snoop. Not sure how else to explain it, but to this day I swear it was like there was a voice inside of me saying, "Pick up the phone." The password was her birthday. How original. I scrolled through the phone and opened her messages. 15 new ones. Oof, what a very popular lady. And they were all from a number I didn't know. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Every emotion I ever had spilled over at once. Anger, sadness, hopelessness, confusion, embarrassment, betrayal, and rejection. From what I could read, the 2 of them talked for hours on end about how much they loved each other and couldn't stand to be apart. They even ridiculed me for how naive I was for not catching on. Oof, it took every ounce of restraint I had not to smash their phone into pieces. What was I to do? She wasn't going to get away with this. I heard her keys rattling as she came in through the front door. I quickly placed the phone back where she'd left it and slapped on the TV. I didn't want to let on that I knew, not just yet. "Hey, honey," she said as she came in, toting a paper bag full of food for the week. "How was work?" It was fine," I answered, as I was randomly surfing through channels. Boring as usual." "Sometimes boring's a good thing, babe." Screw her, calling me babe like everything was fine and dandy. I began to wonder if she called the other guy babe or honey, or had any little pet names for him. She was skimming the pockets of her blue jeans, looking for a cell phone. "Oh, you left your phone on the table over there," I pointed out, eager to see her reaction. Her face hardened with apprehension as she hustled over to the table and picked up her phone. "Oh, so that's where I left it." She tried to fake a smile as her voice quavered with angst. "Yeah, your phone beeped a couple of times. I think you have some messages. Everything okay?" "Yeah, it was nothing. Everything's great." Oh, what a lying bitch. We talked a little bit during dinner, but, well, I can't even begin to recall what about. The food never tasted so disgusting. It was a meal built on deceit. My brain was telling me to bash her face in then and there, and, well, I wanted to. That wasn't an option for me, though. I needed to know who the other guy was. There was no way he was getting a free pass. Next day at work, I was exhausted and emotionally eviscerated. I'd barely gotten any sleep that night. I tried to get back into her phone, but, well, the password was changed. The bitch suspected something. At about 10:30 at night, a customer I'd never seen before came in. I distinctly remember the time because he had somewhat startled me. This time of the night was slow, and I always nodded off for a bit until my shift ended. He walked around for a bit, grabbing miscellaneous items. I remember being annoyed because he was talking on his phone and wouldn't shut the hell up. Took him about 5 minutes to get everything he wanted. A few packs of bubblegum, some snacks, bull crap like that. He was so engrossed in his conversation, he probably thought he was all alone. He set his hand over his phone and turned his attention towards me. "Can I get a lifestyle skin, please?" he whispered, batting his eyes with eagerness. This had to be the most uncomfortable thing ever. God, I hated when people would come up and ask me for condoms. What you do on your own time is your own business. I don't want to hear about it. At least this guy wasn't some punk teenager, though, trying to show off by asking for an extra large size. While he was trying to retrieve his wallet, he put his phone on the counter and turned on the speaker. "Hey, listen, I'm sorry I'm late. I had to pick up some things." Couldn't have been more disinterested in watching this guy scream into his phone until I heard the voice on the other end. "Well, hurry up. I've only got a couple of hours and I want to make the most of them." That voice, that was my wife on the phone. The conversation continued. "You sure tonight's good?" "It couldn't be more perfect. I've been thinking about this all week." "Well, then, prepare to have your mind blown." It's not that part that I want blown. The passion and sensuality burning from her voice was enough to set the phone ablaze. God, what the hell? I couldn't remember the last time we even had sex, let alone even tease the idea of it. So, this was him. This was my enemy, the man that made me lose sleep. Those goddamn pale blue eyes, that conceited way he smiled, his slick back hair. My face went from grim white to beet red in an instant. They ended their cell phone call and he slid some money towards me. "Oh, sorry about that, guy. Big plans tonight, if you know what I mean." At that moment, something snapped inside of me. I always thought that was just a figure of speech, saying that someone snapped. There really is something to it, though. All my time in the war, I knew I hadn't come home the same as when I'd left, but my time in the service molded me into something else. I was a lean, mean, well-oiled machine, but now some screws had come loose, and it was time. Time to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and that cheating ass just bought the last of the bubblegum. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, I had him over the counter. He squirmed and fidgeted like a helpless baby. This was quite a new feeling for me, so much different from shooting a person some distance away. In the army, I never really got a good look at the people I killed. You just squeezed a trigger, and down went the target. But this was exhilarating. I've never felt so in control of another human being. This man was literally about to be erased from existence by my bare hands. As he faded into eternal sleep, the monster inside of me was awakened, and he came out to play. Amidst the chaos, the gun we kept under the counter emerged from its hiding spot. In a last attempt to get me off him, the guy reached for it. Well, I didn't initially plan on shooting him, but since the wonderful idea presented itself, I just couldn't resist. The gun went off twice. Where there was once the face of a man, now lay a disturbing brew of blood and brains. I sat there for a minute to catch my breath, stewing in the mishmash. The calmer I got, I began to double-think my actions, but, well, there was no turning back now. I locked up the gas station and tried to come up with my next move. Nobody'd seen him come in, and no one needed to see him on the security cameras either. I hurried to the back room. The surveillance setup was by no means state-of-the-art. It still recorded onto old VHS tapes. The only negative thing about those is, well, sometimes the tapes get eaten. I could make the footage for the whole day disappear, and it would come off as nothing more than a sad coincidence. With the video proof of what happened taken care of, it was only the matter of disposing of the body, and the car he'd arrived in. Something clicked in my mind. The old logging road. In high school, a lot of the kids would go out there to fool around. That would be a perfect spot to dump the evidence. Maybe just go a little bit further into the woods. I hid out in the gas station for a couple more hours until I was sure no one would be around. Finally, it was about an hour or so later when I decided that if I was going to move, it had to be now. My wife would eventually be home from her extracurricular activity and start to wonder where I was. I packed up the body in the trunk of the car and headed out. I debated getting rid of the gun too, but decided to leave it behind. It was right where it was, like always. Nothing out of place. God, this guy's old car had seen better days. A '92 Taurus. This was the most uncomfortable ride I'd ever taken. Stomach-churning anxiety excluded. At least a black box was out of the question. When I was sure I'd gotten deep enough into the woods, I wiped the car down and tossed the keys as far away as I could. This guy's final resting place was the trunk. That was the way it was going to stay. Now began the journey home. I didn't think this part through too well. I arrived back home about 45 minutes later. My wife ambushed me with questions as soon as I made it through the door. It was like she just wanted to start a fight. She sat there alone in the dark for God knows how long, waiting for me to come home. "Where the hell have you been?" She howled at me, clearly holding back tears. She missed someone all right, but despite the words coming out of her mouth, it wasn't me. I rubbed my eyes and headed into the kitchen for a beer. "Car broke down at work," I assured her. "Yeah, sorry I'm late." "You could have called to let me know. I would have come got you." The conversation went back and forth for a couple of minutes. My cell phone died. Didn't even have to think about that one. Whatever question she could come up with, I seemed to be able to talk my way out of it. Didn't even feel like me. Felt like someone was guiding my hand, pulling my strings and providing the script for me. I just delivered the lines and threw in an ad-lib or two now and then. "And what about the gas station? Why couldn't you just use their phone?" God, she had to go there. Son of a bitch. Enough already of the questions. A damn rat or raccoon or some kind of animal chewed up the phone line. I kept warning everyone when we first found those droppings, but no one listened to me. As I took a moment to catch my breath, she wiped away some tears from her face and continued. "I don't know what your problem is lately. I'm concerned about where you were. You bite my head off for it?" "Yeah." Now I had some questions of my own. This was going to be interesting. "Where exactly were you tonight?" "I was nowhere. What are you going on about?" Her vulnerability slowly disappeared, and the walls I had become accustomed to were slowly going back up around her again. "Well, where's dinner?" "Check, mate." I threw my hands into the air and motioned towards the obviously empty kitchen. "You mean you were sitting here all night by your lonesome, worrying about me, and you never even ate anything?" Who did my wife think she was fooling? She was an habitual nervous eater and had been known to practically inhale a chicken from across the room. If she was so nervous about me, it wouldn't have knocked the edge off her appetite. I got tired of waiting and went out ahead of you. Yours is in the fridge," she said. I walked over to the fridge and opened it. That's funny. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you didn't pick anything up. You work at a grocery store. I shut the door and walked back over to her and got right into her face. If I were you, I wouldn't quit your day job, hon. You make a much better whore than a housewife. She slapped me square across the face. My neck felt like it was going to twist off. Screw you. Make a goddamn sandwich or something for all I care. Little did she know that I realized what was really going on. She was upset about her lover boy bailing on her. Throughout the next few nights, it took every ounce of restraint I had not to kill her in her sleep. It would have been so easy to smother her with a pillow or take a kitchen knife and plunge it into her chest. But the more I thought about it, I liked this idea better. Why give her the easy way out? The one she truly loved was rotting away as if he never existed. I should send her to join him. No, she was going to stay right here with me and wallow in her misery whether she liked it or not. 2 weeks went by and we hardly said a word to each other. I had relocated to the couch, by her choice, not mine. If sleeping next to her at night gave her that much displeasure, I was going to enjoy every minute of it that I possibly could. I wanted to make her miserable for what she did to me. We began to fight over every little thing. A comment over just about anything could set either one of us off. Well, that brings us to today. I was working the night shift. It was the dead hour as usual, so I was taking my much-deserved siesta. Not everyone was built to sleep on a couch, so my naps were becoming more frequent. Suddenly, I was rattled awake. "Hello there. Hey, buddy, you okay? I just want to check out real quick." I sprang back to life. I banged a few keys on the register as if I was never sleeping. "Oh, yeah, sorry about that. What can I do?" I couldn't believe who I was looking at. My heart could have come crashing through my chest. Looking at me dead in the eyes was my wife's lover. What the hell? I started to go into hysterics. "Hey, hold on there, guy." He put his hand over my shoulder. "Take it easy. I'm sorry I scared you. I just want to buy a couple of things." How could this be happening? I blew his face clean off and left him in the woods. Here he was before me, though, and without a scratch on him. I thought maybe it was a dream or hallucination, that I never started to wake up. But this was all too real. His phone began to ring. He put it on speaker just like last time. "Hello? Where the hell have you been? What's taking you so long?" Much to my surprise, though I'm sure if you're reading this, you may have caught on by now, that was indeed my wife's voice on the other end of the phone again. "Sorry, I'm going as fast as I can," he said. "We don't have much time. I have to see you now." "You're over at the Valley Motel, right?" "Yeah, that's where we were supposed to meet last time." "All right. I'm just stopping for some gas and I'll be right." "Listen to me. Don't go to the gas station. I want you just to come straight here." He seemed awfully confused. But just do it. I'm afraid to be anywhere alone. I think you know something." "All right, fine." He hung up his phone and quickly paid for his items. He almost bought all the same things he got that night. Almost. "No condoms this time, man." "Huh?" He glanced at me. "Sounds like you got a big night ahead of you with your lady friend," I explained. He didn't seem too pleased by that. Just mind your own business and go back to sleep. I gotta go." My wife was my business. If putting him in the ground didn't stop this torrid love affair, I guess I was going to have to put her in the ground after all. Now, I knew where they were going to be. Time to catch them in the act. I borrowed the gun from under the counter one last time, knowing full well this was going to be the last time I'd needed it. I made it to the Valley Motel faster than the other guy did. I would have thought he would have known his way there better by now from his previous rendezvous with my wife. Sitting in my car, I loaded the gun and watched from afar as I surveyed what room he entered. I clutched the gun in my hand. The cold, hard steel matched my heart. It was now beating for one reason only: justice. I went over to the door and fired the gun. 2 shots rang out into the night. With the heel of my right boot, the door to the room came crashing down. The surprise alone should have given them both heart attacks. "What the the guy shouted. When I entered the room, he and my wife were sitting on the bed. I got in there before they could get started. "What the hell are you doing here?" my wife shouted at me. "You're crazy, you know that?" Her lover took a good look at me. You're the guy from..." My wife began to scream over him. "God, I told you just to come straight here. Now look what you did. He's found us." "Who is this lunatic anyway?" he asked. All this time together and she didn't even talk about me or anything. I figured now was as good a time as any to get acquainted. "Well, buddy, that lovely lady right there will be my wife. And I'm the loving husband that you just screwed over." Whoa, listen there, buddy. I think there's been some sort of misunderstanding." He started to reach into his pocket. He wasn't taking any chances. The gun roared to life once more. Blood sprung out from his chest, and he started violently choking. I looked down to see him clutching his cell phone in his hand. I guess he didn't have a weapon on him after all. "Honey, please," my wife sobbed as she sprang off the bed. She gently embraced me, trying to get me to lower the gun. "You're upset right now. I know what I did was wrong, okay, but please put the gun down. You're confused right now, and I don't think you understand what's going on." The gun started trembling in my hand. I knew what I had to do, but at that moment I felt myself struggling to do it. The gun went off one final time. "Goodbye, my sweet." Her body went limp and she collapsed into my arms. It's funny how life works. I wanted nothing more than to see her suffer, and now that she was gone, I was going to miss her. I tossed the gun to the floor and gently laid her down on the bed. I turned to walk away when I tripped over her lover's body. What a way to go. Shot for pulling out a cell phone. It looked enough like a gun. I could always bleed self-defense. I began to wonder what exactly it was he wanted me to see on the phone. I picked it up and turned on the screen. A series of text messages presented itself, wanting to be seen. Whoever was on the receiving end of these texts wasn't very talkative. I read them to myself. "Hey bro, you there? Asshole, pick up the phone. Are you there, man? This isn't like you." "Okay, I finally tracked her down. I know you're private, but I'm coming out to meet that new chick you've been seeing. If you're not going to talk, maybe she will. I hope you're all right. Mom and Dad are going to kill you if this is some sort of stunt you're pulling." So yeah, there you go. A couple of weird and wonderful stories there for you from Dr. Creepen's Vault, the subreddit I've set up so that you can share your stories with me and I can read them all for you. As you can probably hear, I am still bunged up as hell. The cold's gone, but there's a bit of phlegm in the throat and in the nose, and it's making it a bit tricky for me to read. So please excuse me if I'm a little bit difficult to understand. Oh, someone's coming down the stairs. Oh, that's it. Hey, all right, end of my video. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time listening to me. Now, if you enjoyed the Dr. Creepen experience, then come find me on Facebook. Come chat with me on Twitter. Listen to the background music and download it if you like on SoundCloud. Drop by the store, pick up a t-shirt. And, importantly, if you've got a story you'd like me to read, send it to Dr. Creepen's Vault, the subreddit I set up so that I could read your stories. Now, looking forward to seeing you all again real soon. So, come check me out, okay?